Yo, it's Zeo here from Team Cardfighters United, bringing you a deck list for Tsukiyomi. But before we talk about the grade 3, we need to run it back all the way to not the grade 2, but the grade 1. So, obviously, we're running 4 copies of the grade 1 Tsukiyomi because we want to try and get her as much as possible because she starts the whole gimmick of the deck, which is basically stacking your deck. When after the turn that you ride her, in the beginning of your ride phase, you look at the top 5 cards of your deck if you have the starter Ichibi Yoshi in your soul, and you get to add 1 card to your hand and put the rest on bottom. And once you add a card to your hand, you can discard a card from your hand, and if you discarded the grade 2, you get to ride it for this turn, and you can't ride for the rest of the turn. So she starts stacking the bottom of your deck. Then the grade 2, Tsukiyomi, which we also run 4 copies of, her skill is the exact same as the grade 1, except if you have the grade 1 in your soul, at the beginning of your ride phase, you can look at the top 5 cards of your deck again, add 1 to your hand, drop 1, and if you drop the grade 3, you can ride it. And then her second skill, on Vanguard or Rearguard, as long as you have a grade 1 Tsukiyomi in your soul, she gets 3k until the end of that battle. And then after that, we go to the actual grade 3, which her skill is, you counterblast 1, you drop a card, and then for each card with Tsukiyomi in the soul, you get to draw a card. But it's up to 3. And then if you draw 3 cards, you get to look at the top 5, choose 2 cards from those top 5, put them on top or on top of the deck, and put the rest on bottom in any order. And then when you drive check 2 triggers, everything in the front row gets 10k. So the idea with Tsukiyomi is to stack your entire deck so you know what it is from top to bottom. But normally that'll take a minute because even if you use all of their skills, you'd only have 8 cards at the bottom of the deck when you get to grade 3. And you wouldn't be able to use her search skill or look at the top 5 skill to put more stuff on the bottom unless you were to re-ride, or, as we'll find out later in the deck, unless you put stuff to soul. So her support cards, we're running 4 of Tsukuyomi, whose skill is, she acts as a trigger when you drive check her, and when it's revealed during a drive check, it gives 10k to your Vanguard, and then you can counterblast to give it a crit. So it acts as like a critical trigger, which is good because it helps proc Tsukiyomi's second skill of when you get 2 triggers. So she's really just a support card for that. The grade 2, which we also run 4 of, when it's placed on Vanguard or Rearguard, you can counterblast 1, you draw a card, and then you can choose a normal unit from your drop zone, put it on top of the deck. But if your opponent's grade 3, if your opponent is a grade 3, you can put it into your soul. So what that means is you can either put Tsukuyomi from the drop to the top of the deck so that way you can get a trigger, or if you needed another Tsukiyomi in your soul, you could take a Tsukiyomi from your drop zone and put it into soul if your opponent's on grade 3. Then we get to Sei, who is really useful because when you ride her on Vanguard, or when she's placed on Vanguard Circle, you can search your deck for the grade 1 and ride it, so that way it fixes your ride, so that way you can use Tsukiyomi more effectively. And then she has an act skill that if your opponent's grade 3, then you can choose a grade 2 or less. You choose one of your other rear guards that's grade 2 or less, put into soul, and then you can look at the top 2 cards of your deck, put them on top of your deck in any order, and put the rest on bottom. So you can put both cards back on top of your deck, or you can put both of them on bottom, or one on top, one on bottom. But her skill is also good for being able to get a Tsukiyomi from rear guard into soul to help you use Tsukiyomi's the grade 3 Tsukiyomi's skill of drawing 3 cards and looking at the top 5. Then we have a really good card, which is Tetromigus, which is simply on place on rear guard. If you have a grade 3 Vanguard, you counterblast, you draw a card, and then you choose one critical trigger unit from your hand and put it on top of your deck. So it lets you take a card that you already have in your hand, put it on top so that way you can guarantee it. And we also run 4 copies of that. Then we get to we run 3 Geminis just for the simple counter charge, because we do counterblast a lot with grade 3 Tsukiyomi and Tetra, possibly the grade 3 that acts as a crit, and the grade 2. So it's good like resource management. And then we run 2 Fuminos, just because there's not a lot of space in the deck because of everything you're running. We're not running the grade 3 Searcher because that's kind of what Fumino does. Her skill is on place, Vanguard or Rearguard Circle, you Soul Blast, you look at the top 5 cards, you put a grade 3 from among them on top of your deck, and then shuffle the other 4 cards. You shuffle those 4 cards, and then you put those 4 that you just shuffled at the bottom of your deck. And then she gets 2k. And the reason we're running her over the grade 3 Searcher is because if you use the grade 3 Searcher, you have to shuffle your deck. So if you've looked at and put 14 cards at the bottom of your deck, and you have like 8 cards or 18 cards left in your deck, the moment you use the grade 3 Searcher skill to look at the top 5 and you put them back, you just shuffled your entire cards that you know about, which means you're starting from scratch and you can't effectively use your skills. So that's why we're running Fumino instead of the grade 3 Searcher. On to the triggers, we're running obviously 4 of the new heal trigger that can either give you an extra 10k until the end of the battle or minus your opponent 2 crit if you haven't run in grade 3. Then we're running 12 crit. 4 of the Sentinel ones, and then 8 generic crits. And that is the deck profile for Tsukiyomi. Honestly, you could probably change some numbers around, but it's worked for me so far. But I hope you all have a wonderful morning, evening, or afternoon wherever you are. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you later. Wahoo!